In the previous lecture, we looked at how the Fermi surface appears in different zones, like in the first Brillouin zone, second Brillouin zone and third Brillouin zone for a two-dimensional square lattice. Now what I am going to do is try to see how the density of states look like in these different bands, or because we can interchangeably use the words zone and band, because the region that is covered by first Brillouin zone corresponds to the contains all the states of the first band, and the region covered by the second Brillouin zone contains all the states corresponding to the second band and so forth. So I will be sometimes interchangeably using zone and band. So, but that is that should be understood. Now let us see how the density of states increases as we keep increasing the energy. So to do that, let us look at the first Brillouin zone or the first band. In the square lattice, in the first band, the density of states is equal to the number of states that are present in a small annulus of around, which is corresponding to the constant energy surfaces E and E plus dE. Okay, so in this region. So multiplied by some normalization constant and considering factor of 2 for spin and so on and so forth, which we have already discussed. So now when we increase, as we go up in energy, what happens is, let me again draw it here so that I will draw a bigger one, so it is easier to follow. One, two, three, four, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. So as we keep increasing the energy, the circles will keep increasing in circumference. Okay, so as we go up, and the largest circle that I can actually be inscribed in the square will be touching tangentially at midpoints of the sides. So because the circumference keeps increasing, the density of states, if I plot, which is N of E or D of E versus energy, it keeps increasing as I keep going up in energy. But then when I go to a certain energy where the circle or the annulus touches the edges of the square, that is the maximum point, and after that you see that the region which contains the states within the zone reduces. So for example, it is going like this, it is only parts of the circle, not the full circle. So it peaks and then it comes down. Okay, and when it peaks, then actually you have gone into the second zone, okay, because you are somewhere there. So the broken part of the circle is in the second zone. The second zone starts having higher number of states. Okay, so the number of states starts showing up in the second zone at these energies, then it will go up like that and then again come down like that. So you will see that as the actually let me show this one a little bit better. Okay, so that is how it will go, and as you will see that the maximum is actually the maximum in the density of states is completely controlled by the size of the Brillouin zone that you have. Well, having said that, now let us go back and see what how we can classify metals, insulators and semiconductors. So to do this, what we need to do is the following, that is, look at the one dimensional picture, much easier to follow. Band structure or the energy dispersion. Which goes like this. Okay, so if we have an electron somewhere at the bottom here, let us assume that there is only one electron in the band. This is an assumption. So that electron is at k is equal to 0 in the ground state. Okay. Now, as I apply an electric field, what happens is the following, that is, this electron starts moving up, because when I apply an electric field E for a time tau, then this is going to change the momentum, right, because this is actually the impulse, E tau is equal to impulse. Okay, in this particular time what happens is the momentum changes, and once the momentum changes, then the electron will start moving in the forward direction, and then it will go up. Let me make this figure a little bit better, because I am not happy with it. So the electron that is here will start moving up as I apply the field, because when I apply the field I am applying a force on the electron, and the force on the electron will make the electron's momentum change. It increases and it keeps going up. Okay. So from say the point 0, it can go up to the point A. When it goes to the point A, then what happens is the following, that is, there is a band gap, okay, because there is a band gap, and so what happens is, because of the potential that is there in the lattice, there is a Bragg reflection of this electron back into this one, okay, and then it starts again increasing its momentum, comes to the point O and goes there. So it is actually following a cyclical motion in the K space, or if I were to show this in the periodic zone representation, it will look like this. The periodic zone, the first band is going to be like going like this. Okay. So the electron will start from here, go there, there, here, there, like that. So as long as the states are available, it will keep going there, and you have the change in momentum of the electron, and because of the change in momentum of the electron, the current increases, but the moment you go to the end of this thing, the zone edge, it gets reflected back and it starts moving again forwards from the new position in the K space. Well, what happens when we have a band that is completely filled? When a band is completely filled, we have the following situation. So all the states are occupied. So I have electrons everywhere. So supposing I apply an electric field, if the electron at this position has to move up, the next position, the next quantum state must be vacant. If it is occupied, it cannot move. Similarly, at this point, if this electron has to move up to this position, it must be occupied, it must be empty, this particular state. If the state is empty, only then this electron can go, otherwise it cannot go. So even if you apply an electric field, you cannot push an electron from this state into this state. Similarly, there is a band gap here, so this cannot go either into this state or it cannot jump over because the band gap is large. So because of that, you see what happens is that if you have a filled band, it cannot conduct electricity, or it is an insulator. So a filled band is an insulator, and if you have a partly filled band, then it will be a conductor or metal, or a metal, in the ground state, that is at absolute 0 Ke1, it will conduct electricity in the ground state. Well, what one usually knows is, if you are looking at open shell systems like lithium, sodium, potassium, these are all open shell systems. And these will conduct electricity as the energy bands, or as the energy band which is as the highest energy band, as the highest energy band is half filled. Now how does one explain the metallicity of things like calcium, barium, and beryllium, and so on and so forth. Okay. So these are all closed shell configurations, and they correspond to S2 configuration. Okay, NS2 configuration. So which means that the band, the highest energy band, is fully occupied. It appears like. But nonetheless, these are metallic. The reason why this happens is the following. Reason why these are metallic is that the P bands, which is the higher energy P bands, are descend below the S band. That is, there is an overlap of the NS band with the NP band. So we can show it schematically in the following way. So we have the first band is going up in energy like that, and the second band has come down and so forth. So now they will have a common Fermi energy, and this Fermi energy will correspond to two partly filled bands. So which is this is the S band and this is the P band. So both S and P bands are partly filled and leads to electrical conduction. That is to say that electrons in this band, for example somewhere here, they can actually move up in this band when you apply an electric field, and same is the case with electrons in the upper band, they can also start moving up. And because of that overlap of the two bands, the S and the P bands, you will have conductivity in these systems which is metallic. Okay, now let us move on to another topic, which is basically something to do with what are called effective mass. effective mass of electrons. Well, electrons in a band have a band electrons have a group velocity, because when you have more than one electron in the system, then these wave functions of these electrons will overlap, they form wave packets, and it is the individual wave packets that are moving, and the group velocity of this is given by Vg equal to 1 by h cross del E by del k, or is equal to del omega by del k. Because E is equal to h cross omega. Now, let us see what happens to the change in energy when we apply a force on these electrons. Okay? If we apply a force on the electron for a time dt, let us say the force is F. I am just looking at as scalars because I am looking at a one dimensional problem. The energy change dE is equal to F dx equal to F Vg dt. Now, or we can say that dE by dt is equal to F Vg, which is to say one by h cross. Okay. Now, I can write down dE by dt as dE by dk times dk by dt. This is equal to 1 by h cross F dE by dk, or dE by dk will cancel on both sides. And what we get is F is equal to h cross dk by dt, or equal to d by dt of h cross k, which should not be surprising because h cross k will actually give you the momentum, and the rate of change of momentum is the force. Now, let us look at the next thing, that is what happens to acceleration. So, acceleration A this is equal to dVg by dt, where Vg is a group velocity, and that is equal to 1 by h cross d by dt d omega by dk. One second, there is no, let me be careful with the d by dt d omega by dk, or that is equal to 1 by h cross d by dt dE by dk. So, I can write down acceleration A is equal to 1 by h cross d by dt dE by dk, or is equal to 1 by h cross d squared E by dk squared into dk by dt, or equal to 1 by h cross squared d squared E by dk squared into d h cross k by dt. That is to say that acceleration A is equal to 1 by h cross squared d squared E by dk squared into force, because F is equal to dh cross k by dt is something that we just showed before. Because of this, we can associate a mass, an effective mass, can be associated with the curvature in energy. In k space. So, we can write down mass as follows: 1 by m star or m effective is equal to 1 by h cross squared d squared E by dk squared, because A is equal to F by m, and 1, so 1 by m is this quantity 1 by h cross squared d squared E by dk squared. In general, if you are looking at a 3-dimensional picture, a higher dimensional, which could be either 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, then we have the following. This effective mass becomes a tensor. 1 by h cross squared del squared E by del ki del kj, where I comma j will be x, y or z. So, this is interesting way of looking at the curvature in the energy band, and what we can say about this is the following. That is, if you look at the curvature of the energy band, we can say the following. At the bottom of the band, the curvature is positive del squared E by del k squared. At the top of the band, this becomes negative. It is not actually the bottom of the band. At the bottom of the band, it is strictly 0, but somewhere close to the bottom of the band and close to the top of the band, this is negative. So, it appears to mean that the effective mass is positive at the bottom of the band and as we keep moving up the band, at the top it becomes negative. Most of the times when we are dealing with transport properties, what is important is the ratio of electronic charge to the charge to mass ratio of the charge carriers. In transport, basically electrical transport, what is important is ratio of charge to mass Q by m. Actually, one need not say electrical, because even in heat transport it becomes important, the direction in which the heat flows, as we saw in the Seebeck coefficient. So, it depends upon Q by m. So, what is done is usually that if Q is negative as for electrons and m is negative, Q by m is positive. So, we can instead say the following, that is, hence we can state that both Q and M are positive. So, this implies that the charge carrier at the top of the band has both Q positive and M positive. So, whenever a charge carrier has a positive charge, then you call it a hole, that is top of the band has holes and positive mass, bottom of the band has electrons and positive mass. Well, how does one physically understand this? How can the mass of the electron keep changing in the system? The way to understand it is, by using an analogy. So, the analogy that I am going to give you is one of say a vehicle moving on the streets. Okay. In the street, what you have is you have uphills, downhills, uphills, downhills, like that. So, whenever the vehicle is moving up a hill, it slows down, okay, at the same for the same amount of energy input, but downhill it rapidly accelerates, and so on and so forth. So, here either I can think of the vehicle as having a constant mass and the road is being up and down, or I can say that the vehicle that I have is a peculiar vehicle. Its mass changes depending upon whether it is going downhill or whether it is going uphill. If it is going downhill, the mass becomes very small. If it is going uphill, the mass becomes large, but the road itself is very smooth. So, I can think of the road as being absolutely flat, but now I have a vehicle which is a peculiar vehicle whose mass changes depending upon where the original road, the topography of the original road. If the original road, the slope was up, then this fictitious vehicle at that point will have a higher mass, but where the original road has a topology which was downwards, the fictitious vehicle at that particular point will have a lower mass. So, it is as if the property of the road has been transferred into the property of the vehicle itself. So, the vehicle that I am looking at is no longer a bare vehicle, but it is a vehicle which is having the influence of the underlying topography of the road. So, here also it is the same thing, that is, I can think of electrons as getting scattered by the potentials. Okay. So, wherever, depending upon the wave vector of the electron is going to get scattered, because the component of the plus k and the minus k states in a particular position in the band is going to be different. For example, if you go to the top of the band, the plus and the minus k states will have equal weights, and because of that the electron, the effective mass will be infinity and positive, whereas at the bottom, as we come down, the effective mass keeps changing and it becomes from positive to less positive and then negative and so forth, and comes down to negative infinity at the bottom of the band. So, here we are looking at an electron which is actually an effective electron or a quasi electron, which is moving in a potential free, it is a free quasi electron, but the free quasi electron itself, depending upon its wave vector or the momentum, the mass is changing. Okay. Wherever the electron is getting scattered backwards, the mass is going to be negative and it becomes a hole, but wherever the electron is getting scattered forwards, the electron is going to be having a lower mass, and so it goes faster in the positive in the direction. So, in a way it is basically looking at assuming that the electrons are free electrons but with a property that its mass is not a constant. So, the mass increases if the potential in the original lattice decelerates the electron. And the mass reduces if the potential in the lattice is going to accelerate the electron. So, this is the picture that one can think of for the effective mass of the electrons. So, the things that we have are the following, that is the property of the underlying potential has been transferred to the electron, and we define a quantity called the effective mass, which changes from position to position in the K space. And what you are also seeing is the following, that is, if the curvature is large, that is, if I have a energy dispersion relationship that goes like this, then effective mass is small. On the other hand, if the curvature is small, then the effective mass is large. So, narrow bands have large effective mass, but the large average effective mass, but broad bands have a small average effective mass. So, this is important, and in fact this particular principle that the effective mass is different in different regions of the band is useful for understanding something like gun effect. Okay? And I will talk about gun effect in the next lecture, but gun effect is something that is dependent on the change of the effective mass, the change in the effective mass when it goes from one region of K space to another region of K space, and how it can actually give rise to a device is something that I will talk about in the next lecture. For now I will stop here. Thank you.